What's up everybody? My name is Kasper Nørgaard and today we're going to talk about how to shoot in manual mode on a DSLR camera, in photos and in videos. Keep watching. Almost everybody has a way to take a photo today, with a phone, compact camera or DSLR camera. When you use your phone, it automatically adjusts the settings to get the best picture under your circumstances. That's the same way with a DSLR, but here you have the opportunity to set the camera to a manual mode to control your settings yourself and get the look that you want. For your smartphone you can buy an application to control these manual settings. In manual mode you have three things that matters: aperture, exposure, also called the ISO, and the shutter speed. On some lenses you are able to adjust the aperture manually, also called the f-stop number. On other lenses with autofocus, the aperture can be set in the camera. On top of the camera there's a dial where you can change from auto mode to manual mode. There are 4 different settings on your camera. M is for manual mode, S is for shutter speed mode, A is for aperture mode, and P is a program mode, where the aperture and the shutter speed is set. I don't recommend using this P mode, mainly because I don't understand it that much, but feel free to try it yourself. For pictures, you go to the M mode on your camera, where you get the full control out of your pictures. And for video, you change the setting in the camera to M. I always say, let you control the settings and don't let the settings control you. The first thing is the aperture, which controls the amount of light the lens lets into your camera. The aperture is a way to create a blurry background, also called bokeh. And the lower the number of the aperture is, the more blurrier background you will get. The second thing is ISO, and it's used to control the exposure, how bright the picture is. The lower the ISO, the darker the image, and the higher the ISO, the brighter your image will get. But the higher the ISO also means that you let more noise into your picture. So you always want to keep the ISO as low as possible. The third and final thing is the shutter speed. The shutter speed determines how fast the shutter opens and closes, and that controls how much light the sensor is capturing. And it also controls the motion blur, how shaky or how sharp your image will get. The faster the shutter, the less light and less motion blur you will get. I know, it's a bit confusing and they all control the light, but they control it very differently. I would say once you get a hold on it, and play around with the settings, it makes sense. For example, when you set a high aperture to get a less blurry background, you are closing the aperture blades and thereby letting light in. To get more light, you control the shutter speed and the ISO. With the shutter speed you set how much motion blur you want, and then the ISO makes up for the light that you lost or you gained. If you can't get any lower with the ISO and your image still is too bright, then adjust the aperture or the shutter speed to make up for these differences. I would say there's no right priorities to set these, because it depends on what you want to get out of the camera. And these are the same terms when filming in manual mode, which is getting the most out of your camera. When filming, the shutter speed is one of the most important settings to begin with. If your shutter speed is set too low, you will get an image too blurry, and if your shutter is set too high, you will get an unnatural look. But for a professional film look, you will need some motion blur. The rule is to always set the shutter speed double the frame rate. And most movies are shot in 24 frames per second or 23.976 frames per second. So to shoot in that you have to set your shutter speed at 48 frames per second. But in your camera the closest settings will be 50 frames per second. Some people like to shoot in slow motion, and the most common frame rate is 60 frames per second. So you will set your shutter speed at 125, which is the closest to 120. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I didn't confuse you, but gave you a little insight to how to operate in manual mode. Please subscribe to my channel and smash that like button below and leave a comment if you have any. I will see you in the future.